Why, hello everyone. Welcome back to Coffee Connections. My name is Seth Weiner, and I am your auctioneer. Still in sunny South Florida, and I know everyone's like, it's snowing here. It's going to drop to the 20s in Atlanta. It's 76 and beautiful, and my hair's not wet, but I will go into the pool after this episode. Just to remind everyone, Coffee Connections is Insights with Innovators. We're talking to Atlanta nonprofits, their executive directors, their CEOs, people in the Atlanta community that are true innovators. And today we have one that is just that. Now, before I even go into our guest today, what's interesting about our guest today is the connections to so many other guests that we've had from Second Helpings Atlanta, the Blue Dove Foundation, Next Gen, and more. And I'm sure we're going to discover even more. So let me go ahead and get you all set up here with Lily Brent. She's the executive director of Repair the World Atlanta. Now, Lily is a writer and social worker whose curiosity and commitment to service catalyzed a career in international development spanning 6 countries over the last 8 years. Yes, 6 countries over the last 8 years. She is the founding director for Repair the World Atlanta. She's thrilled to join other young Jews in critical reflection, study, volunteering with local partners, and strengthening alliances among diverse communities. She's got a very vast professional career in life. She's traveled the world and more and done things everywhere she's gone. And apparently she has some sort of chickpea recipe that is very, very famous. So let's find out about that and more. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Lily. And there she is. Hi, Lily. Oop, did I get you unmuted? I did this again. I do this all the time. I'm so sorry. You are unmuted.
Okay, it's just part of our culture now, mute, unmute. But thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be with you.
Yes, well, it's great to have you here. I joked on the intro, on the description. I said everyone should have a cup of free trade coffee because I feel like that's really appropriate for what you do with Repair the World.
Yes.
But before we even get into it, do you drink coffee? And if so, do you have a coffee mug?
Oh, I do drink coffee, and I have this coffee mug. It's not very exciting. But I have a few that I rotate through. One of the other more exciting ones is from Chocolatl ATL.
Oh, yeah. Down in Decatur. I've been there several times. I think there's more than one location, though.
I think they're at Pond City Market, too. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. So you drink coffee then?
I do. Mm-hmm.
You like your coffee dark? You like it medium? What roast do you go with?
Probably medium and with some milk or cream or soy, something in there. Yeah. Okay.
So now you said milk or cream or soy. Now there's a big difference of half and half and soy milk. What do you prefer?
That's true. Well, my partner has converted me to we have soy products in our home, so that's what I mostly drink now. But every once in a while, I get some cream, and that's pretty good.
Now, I've been doing almond milk for quite some time, but I've kind of started, like at Dunkin' Donuts and places like that, getting the oat milk because I find it to be like creamier, especially for like a latte or something.
I was gonna say that barista oat milk is kind of the best dairy substitute that I've found. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to coffee, are you a drip or a French press kind of gal?
We do the French press here. Mm-hmm.
I am with you. It's the way to go. I mean, it's a nice ritual, right? Like the drip is the drip, and I get it, but like the heating of the water and then the pressing it down and letting it sit and like all of that. It's just it's a nice process.
It is, yeah. A few quiet minutes in the morning. So.
Before you get all jittery. So speaking of jittery, let's tell everyone about Tikkun Olam. Well, that's one way to say it, but tell everyone about Repair the World Atlanta and Repair the World in general.
Yes. So Repair the World's mission is to mobilize Jews and their communities to take action to pursue a just world, igniting a lifelong commitment to service. And we believe that service in support of social change is vital to a flourishing Jewish community and an inspired Jewish life. So what that means is that we are constantly mobilizing our community to volunteer and to learn about the issues that affect all Atlantans, particularly when it comes to poverty and inequity in our community. And we have three main programs. We have a full-time fellowship for young adults 21 to 26, where they work to be a bridge between the Jewish community and our nonprofit partners. So they do 20 hours of direct service every week with two nonprofit partners in housing and homelessness, in education, or in food justice. And then they spend their other 20 hours doing educational and social events to pull in other people to volunteer alongside them. This year, under COVID, we actually started a new program called Serve the Moment. And that is a part-time opportunity for young people 18 to 29. We found that a lot of people at the beginning of the pandemic were really dislocated and looking for something meaningful to do, either when they found themselves unexpectedly home from college, when they were furloughed, when they were laid off. And so we created this opportunity to do 10 hours a week of service with us and 2 hours of Jewish learning. And they're able to earn a stipend and get some great experience with a nonprofit partner through that. Yes, we are currently recruiting for our spring cohort. We're looking for 20 super committed volunteers who want to serve with us from March 15th to May 21st. So definitely hoping folks will hear this and apply. The deadline is February 15th. So we got our full-time option, we got our part-time option, and then we have service programs every single week. You can come out and volunteer with us. We cook for local shelters. We volunteer at urban farms and community gardens. We have all kinds of different programs that we do. And we just came off of our major volunteer weekend of the year. That is a partnership with many, many other wonderful partners across Atlanta. There's a strong tradition all over the country, but especially in Atlanta, of serving on Martin Luther King Day. And we had over 1,200 people come out and serve, even under COVID. So hope we get to talk a little bit more about that in our innovation question. We did some new things this year, but that's about us.
My gosh, there's so much to unpack with that. You just laid out a conversation that could last 2 hours. So
yeah, we keep pretty busy over here.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your time here. Well, let's start by Repair the World. Now, Atlanta is a chapter of this organization?
Yeah. So we are a national nonprofit, and we are in 14 cities across the country. And I was brought on to start the Atlanta chapter in 2018. So we just hit 2.5 years. So we're still pretty new in the community here.
That is very new, but it's very successful. So surprised, though, that Atlanta is new. It seems like something like this would have been around for quite some time.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, it was a great fit. And I think that's why we've been so successful, is we've just been really welcomed into the ecosystem here, both in the Jewish world, but also with all of our partner nonprofits, who I think really see the value of what we bring to the table, which is, capacity building support in the form of young professionals, sometimes doing 10 hours a week, sometimes short-term, long-term, and then bringing volunteers as well.
Now, with the young professionals, is there an age where, when are you considered not a young professional anymore?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. When you read my bio and you were like, Lily does this with other young Jews, I was like, oh, do I still get to say that I'm young? Yeah, it's an interesting category. I think for us, we're looking at folks, I would say like post-college to early family is our main target demographic. So people who have maybe not found a community or a organizational home in the same way that folks tend to do a little bit later in life. So we're pretty flexible in general, but there are some age ranges for some of our programs. And I will say too that some of our absolute best volunteers are in their 70s. So we are open to everybody. You don't have to be Jewish to volunteer with us. We are rooted in Jewish values, but welcome everybody. And
now all the felons that are watching that need to do community service, they can do this here as well, right?
It's funny that you say that. I started my career, I think you mentioned my international development background. My very first job was in criminal justice reform. So I'm actually a huge proponent of second chances for folks and working. I believe everybody can contribute to their community, and none of us, as Brian Stevenson says, are the worst thing we've ever done. So yeah, whoever you are, we've got a place for you.
Now, what about and that's great, by the way. I love that. But I'm thinking now, like, you have all these organizations you partner with. How does an organization get to partner with you?
Yeah, good question. I think it depends what level of commitment or partnership they're looking for. I think when we originally set things up in Atlanta, that was a really fun year for me to just learn the Atlanta landscape. I think I met with over 300 people, and me and my fellow at the time probably volunteered with over 45 different organizations. And I think for the fellowship, we were looking for grassroots organizations that were really experts on the ground when it came to communities most affected by poverty and inequity. We know that's not what we bring to the table, so we're looking for partners who are leaders and experts in that area, and where we can follow their agenda by bringing resources, human capital to the table. And so it was, what difference would a fellow make at 10 hours a week? And most of the fellowship organizations we work with, they have between like 1 and 3 paid staff members. So having somebody, having somebody 10 hours a week makes a huge difference. And then I would say, like, outside of that, anybody who is aligned with our mission, like, we'd love to do a volunteer program with you. We're open to lots and lots of partnerships, but the fellowship placements are a little more specialized.
So would you say like fellowship placements are more internships almost, because they're doing more, they're not sorting the clothing, they're doing the social media marketing and this sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think it's a mix. I think our ideal placement, they do some direct service kind of client or participant facing work, so that they can get to know the community and be immersed in the community. But we also want them to be able to add value. So yes, they do social media, they do communications, they do grant writing, they do, whatever the organization needs. And that's been super interesting under COVID. I know, for example, we work with Rebecca's Tent, which is a women's shelter. And in the past—
Is that out of
Shereth Israel, the synagogue.
Okay.
Yeah. And before the pandemic, our fellow was really focused on managing volunteers for them. That's always a big part of their role, is volunteer management, but looking at the enrichment programs that the women do and the Sunday fun days. And under COVID, the organization has taken on a huge role in providing rental assistance to the community. So our fellow just pivoted right along with them and said, okay, you need someone to screen rental applications and to go to housing complexes and let landlords and tenants know that this rental assistance is available. So a lot of what they do is being flexible and adaptive and filling in wherever needed.
And I can also see that in time that they create a relationship with the organization that's long lasting, that they might go to college or they're out of college and they're there and end up creating a job for themselves.
Yeah, nationally, in our cities that have been around a little longer, we definitely see a pipeline where fellows get hired by their partners because, that investment that the organizations make in training them and seeing how they are able to jump in and support, that's not somebody that you want to lose. So there's definitely a strong relationship, I would say, between our fellowship and being employed by our partners, by other Jewish nonprofits as well.
And with 2 years of history in Atlanta, this question may be hard to answer from Atlanta's perspective, but on a greater, repair the world perspective, with COVID, are you seeing now more volunteerism because people have more time, or I'm curious how the landscape is, because to me there's lots of questions that come with that. I mean, you can't have mass gatherings of people sorting food and clothes, but it still needs to be done.
Totally. Yeah, it's been interesting. And I think the answer has been different as we move through these different stages of the pandemic. I think one of the things that I am most proud of is our partnerships with Concrete Jungle and with SWEAC, which is the Southwest Ecumenical Emergency Assistance Center, which is—
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, right. I've gotten very good at saying that. And I learned what ecumenical means.
What does that mean?
It's interdenominational Christian.
Okay.
Yeah. So the SWEAC was founded by a consortium of churches together who saw a need for a food pantry in the West End. And they have been around over 20 years and are a client choice pantry, meaning that you get to go in and shop and choose what you want.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's got to be that's got to be a great transition for people, that especially right now when people like never had to go to a food pantry bank ever, right? And now they need food, and to be able to have the luxury of shopping, if you will, that has to be really good for their mental being.
Yeah, client choice is a good model. And SWIAC, like so many other pantries, had to adapt very quickly during the pandemic. They went through, as we all did, that phase where grocery store shelves were bare, and a lot of our pantries rely on grocery store excess donations. And so there were a couple of weeks there where there was no grocery store excess. And then Concrete Jungle, which is a gleaning and growing organization that brings fresh produce to pantries, they were really out in front at understanding the need to transform the pantry model under COVID, because it's not safe to have 200 people lining up to get food at the same time. And a lot of folks who had underlying conditions or health risks, or who were, in their 60s, 70s, and older, suddenly it really wasn't safe for them to go out to the pantry. So what the three of us did together, really taking the lead from Concrete Jungle, was create a grocery delivery program. And they're now working with a number of partner pantries across the city, including ICM and the JFNCS Kosher Food Pantry and SWIAC, to get volunteers who come every week and deliver the groceries from the pantry to the folks who would have normally been lining up or coming through, but who are really vulnerable to COVID. And we found at the beginning of the crisis that even that wasn't enough, and so started a independent program of sourcing and sorting food, again, with donated space, with volunteers, packing and sorting and delivering food. And they, at the peak of the program, were serving 400 people a week and had over 140 volunteers every week making that happen. And when I say 400 people, I mean actually 400 families. So a lot of people. So in that way, it was just amazing to see both the organizations and the volunteers rise to the occasion. I think people were so intensively aware at that time that the need had exploded. The risk had, I don't even know what the word is, like the risks were different from anything we'd ever encountered. And there was just a need to step up. And even with all of our existing systems doing everything in their power, it wasn't enough to meet this need that was great before the pandemic, and that was only exacerbated by it. So I think in that early phase, I saw people coming out of the woodwork to pitch in, which was amazing. And then I think as time has gone on, we've also, as a field, figured out how to adapt volunteering a bit. So I think this Martin Luther King weekend was a great example where we set a goal for ourselves of having 600 volunteers, 613. And we knew that we wouldn't be able to do things in person at the scale that we used to. And so we partnered with some great organizations like Creating Connected Communities and the Packaged Good to do supply drives and sorting and packing at home, so that people could sort of asynchronously gather these supplies, pack them up, aggregate them as a way of volunteering without going out and about in person. We did what we call our Zoom to Table program, which is where we have a group of folks each cook a portion of a meal for a shelter. So 10 to 12 people can cover a shelter like Covenant House that has 60 residents at any given time. So we tried to be really innovative about giving people from home options. And we had over 1,200 people participate. So I think the appetite is there, and I think people have a lot of questions about safety. And as long as we are able to provide opportunities that meet those needs, either through social distancing and outdoor service. So we did tree planting with Trees Atlanta. We did a farm day at Concrete Jungle's Doghead Farm. We were at the Browns Mill Food Forest, which is the city's first forest devoted to growing produce that will eventually be shared with the community. So we had all these outdoor projects, and then we're able to think about what can people do from their own homes as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I haven't heard of any of that yet, of people cooking, the buffet line being built in so many different homes. I really like that concept because there's like people think shelters and they're like hundreds of people, but no, there's so many shelters that are small, under 100 capacity. So that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, so we work with Covenant House. We work with Nicholas House, which is a
Yeah.
small family shelter, and then Rebecca's Tent, and our house as well. So they're all, like in that under 100 range, and they all rely exclusively on volunteers to get their meals.
And I imagine that like Nicholas House, I toured there before, and I can just imagine the how busy they're going to get once evictions really start taking place and things like that. I mean, we're kind of at the edge of that storm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hope. I mean, there are definitely times when we've got to look to government for large scale policy and structural solutions. And I think if we start to see evictions, we're really going to be in trouble. I think our infrastructure is not poised to respond to that. And prevention. What do they say? What's that? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I think that's never been more true. So I really hope to see something that prevents that.
Well, our listeners out there, if you work with government, you heard it here. Make a difference. Wow. So, I mean, so this, like I said, there's so much unpacked. So where did you get all these volunteers though? Like you said that you target students. Are you going to the youth groups? You're going to Hillels? I mean, specifically, you're targeting Jewish youth. So where do you find Jewish youth that are unaffiliated? That's the question I want to ask. Where do you find Jewish youth that's unaffiliated?
Yeah, that's that unicorn question everybody wants to know. We work with we do work with students, especially through our Serve the Moment program. But in general, I would say our target audience is young adults who tend to be sort of post-student phase or grad students into like early family life. And I think a lot of our model relies on sort of basic community organizing where it's relational. And so that's a big part of what the fellows do. In pre-COVID days, they would go to lots of different community events, Jewish community events, but also social justice events or events that had to do with the neighborhood that they are living in or just what they're interested in. So, a hiking club or whatever it is. And
Right.
as they meet folks, if, in talking about what they do, people are interested. I find most people are really intrigued by like, oh, I'd love to get more involved. I've always wanted to volunteer. I'm not sure how. So part of our model is like, hey, our fellow will take you out for coffee one-on-one, talk to you about like, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? And hey, do you want to show up at our farm crew with a couple of friends and, come discover an amazing urban farm or garden and dig in the dirt? Or if that's not,
find a chickpea recipe.
Yeah, if that's not your thing, I was going to say cooking. Lots of people are into that, and the idea that you can cook at home and also benefit some folks who are really in need of a hot, nutritious meal. So I think that's a big part of our work, and our fellows' work is helping people plug in. And, word of mouth travels. Our partners are a huge recruitment for us. We do a lot with One Table and Moisha House and Next Gen.
It was just the whole time you're talking, I was thinking like I could see how you could have a fellow at a Next Gen event and then basically finding volunteers or those interested and helping them find other areas they might be interested in doing community service. So that's really wonderful. But it costs money to do this work. It's a lot of people you got to communicate with, all the partner relationships you got to keep with. So, I mean, there's costs to supplies to be able to give people the tools and resources they need to be able to do the volunteering. Where do you get your money?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you mentioning that because I think it's something people don't realize. They're like, well, I'm volunteering, I'm providing my services for free. So why is there a cost associated with this? And I think on the side of managing volunteers, there is an investment there that's made. And I think also in putting together programming. So part of our philosophy is that, yes, we want people to sort and pack food, but we also want to lead them to the question of why in the wealthiest country in the world in 2021 are we having to hand out food to folks? Are there bigger structural solutions that we could advocate for? And what do our Jewish values and teachings say about guiding us into more sustainable solutions? So we put a lot of thought into what we call contextual learning, which is kind of the framing educational pieces of the volunteer service. And we believe that that really enhances the experience and makes the contribution even deeper. So yeah, putting all of that together takes resources. And we are very lucky that we have a growing, I would say, base of support in Atlanta, but something that as a new organization, we're definitely still working on. So our funding comes from a combination of individual support at various levels, and then family foundations are major supporters. And we've also been very lucky to get an innovation grant from the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta. So that's been a good source of kind of startup fuel for us as well.
When did you get the innovation grant?
So we got the first grant. This is our second year with the grant.
Okay.
2 years ago.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, they've been so supportive to so many organizations that have been on the show. But do you do anything for fundraising? Do any events yet or anything like that in Atlanta? I mean, I imagine Repair elsewhere has, but specifically Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, we do 2 campaigns a year, usually around our end of fiscal year, sort of that, the end of the calendar year, that sort of Giving Tuesday to January-ish. And then our program year runs August to July. So during that time, we're often asking folks to contribute to our work. And then a lot of grant writing. Yeah.
Yes, I imagine that's a big piece. And the fact that you work with so many other organizations, are you co-granting? Are you doing stuff where like there's an organization that has a project where you collaborate to get the money for that project?
Yeah, I think we're starting to move more into that. And I think that's an exciting role for us in the community as well. You know, when you were saying where do we get our volunteers, I was thinking as I was setting up Repair, I said to a lot of people, if you're trying to set up a service program, I want to be your first call. Like I want to be able to provide that infrastructure to other organizations in the community who are like, hey, I want to do a service day with my staff, or, I have Hebrew school students and we'd like them to learn about Tikkun Olam through experience and do 4 programs a year. So we've started that going, and then we also are being called on more and more to do some consultation around how do you show up as a volunteer and how do you grapple with some of the complexities of, hey, we want to do good, we want to give back, and we don't want to disempower the communities that we're working with. How do we work alongside as partners instead of having kind of a transaction? I'm over here with all the money and resources and expertise, and you are there to receive and say thank you. And so I think a big opportunity that I see for us is in that kind of training and technical assistance and education role as other organizations are standing up new programs, helping them with that approach and that education where how do we get to develop our community together and maximize our resources, whether that's human capital or money, together. And I think that's a conversation that more organizations are wanting to have and more funders are wanting to bring us in on. And
then are you, being that it's a separate wing of the organization, are you funded at all by the main organization?
Yeah, so it's a combination. And actually, I'm so lucky. I'm so grateful to Atlanta because we have a very high percentage of local funding. It kind of varies city to city. But I think in being one of the newer cities with Repair, that's something that we've learned is there's got to be local buy-in. That you don't want to enter a community where folks aren't excited to have you and willing to invest in you. And so I think Atlanta has been fantastic for that. And yes, we do receive a lot of support and infrastructure from our national office too.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. Folks, if you didn't catch it yet, you can go to werepair.org for more information about the organization, what's going on with Atlanta, etc. And Lily, is there anything that maybe we glanced over or you want to go back to that we maybe missed that you wanted to share?
Definitely want to highlight that Serve the Moment deadline coming up February 15th. If you are a young person, 18 to 29, or you know a young person, and you want to do 10 hours of service with us for 10 weeks, we have so many great organizational partners, as I mentioned, in food justice, in education, in housing and homelessness. And this program has really enabled us to expand within the Jewish community as well. So we're working with Jewish Home Life and with Blue Dove and just a whole host of partners. So if folks are looking for that meaningful experience, now is the time to apply. And one of the stories I love about this program is that when we were initially pitching it, especially with that idea of connecting with seniors in our community, people were really concerned about the isolation of seniors. And we thought,
Right.
oh, we'll connect them with young people and that'll be so great. And we heard from our young folks that I was feeling really isolated. I was stuck at home. I wasn't expecting to be in Atlanta, or I had to adjust to not having a job or working remotely. And being in a cohort and learning and serving together as a cohort gave people so much purpose. And I think, as we saw with our great turnout for Martin Luther King Day, people are looking for a way to plug in and give back. So also for those parents and grandparents out there, if this is your child or grandchild, we love getting those.
Look pretty and share it to others in the Atlanta community and beyond. Also, again, go to werepair.org. Lily, thanks so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed our conversation, or our coffee connection, if you will. And I look forward to seeing more of Repair here in Atlanta, or there in Atlanta. And before you go, though, I ask every one of my guests to recommend a future guest on Coffee Connections that's an innovator in the Atlanta nonprofit world. And is there someone that you would like to recommend?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. And I'm really grateful for the platform to get the word out about what we do. And I would like to recommend Ruth A. Bushmadger and Jada Garrett from B'chol Hashon, which is an organization dedicated to diversity within the Jewish community and sort of the multiracial and multi-ethnic nature of our rich community, and letting people know more about that. And I'm sure they'll give you a better, more concise description of what they do, but I hope you can get a hold of them because they do really important work.
And you did this just to tag on the difficult name, because there was the other name you mentioned earlier. You really want to see me have a tongue twister, don't you?
Yes, that's how I chose. I chose the hardest name for you to pronounce with the most apostrophes.
All right, that's perfect. Well, thank you so much. Again, go to werepair.org. Enjoy your rest of your afternoon, and everyone, we'll see you back next week. So thanks again from Coffee Connections.
Thank you.